Hello and welcome to the Meaning Project podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dr. Daniel A. Franz. As always, thank you for this opportunity to allow me to bring a little bit of mental health and meaning to your day. And actually, maybe hopefully this episode, let me bring a little bit of mental health and meaning to your year. As I sit here and record this, we are looking at the end of 2022. I'm recording it Saturday morning, December 31st, 2022. And when you receive this, it'll be well into the new year, sometime in early January of 23. And this is a season for many of us, hopefully, that we spend some time reflecting on the previous year and setting goals or thinking of what we want the next year to look like. Many of us set those horrible New Year's resolutions. And I have to tell you, I think if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you know 87.4% of those New Year's resolutions die by the end of January. And in fact, 75.9% of all statistics are made up right there on the spot. Yeah, so none of those statistics are true, but we know when we set New Year's resolutions that they don't always work out. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about setting up better ways to think about 2023 and maybe to reflect on 2022. Why is that important in logotherapy? Well, as we talk about, human beings are always in the state of becoming. We are spiritual human beings, and our spirit, our being, our conscious, that inside of us that we can't always define, is always seeking new meaning and new opportunities and ways to grow. So I wanted to share this from the great book, Viktor Frankl's Logotherapy and Existential Analysis by Drs. Marshall. They quote Frankl in here saying, again, if we recognize we're spiritual beings, the dimension of spirit is not characterized by homeostasis, right? We look for more than that, or balance. It is dynamic. I love this, check it out. Reaching from the here and now into the past for resources and into the future for what is still possible. And isn't what this time of year is all about? Looking over the past year to reflect on what have we done? What have we accomplished? Where did we maybe fail? Where did we struggle? And what do we want the next year to look like? So again, I do not recommend resolution. If you've followed me for a while, you know we talk about SMART goals. That's the big thing this time of year. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time oriented. If you're going to set some SMART goals, they should be specific. I'm going to cross the finish line at this 5K on this date in the spring, or I'm going to lose this amount of pounds, which hopefully you know isn't always a great goal. We don't always want to go with weight loss goals, and I can't remember why. It just seems to be a little bit unhealthy, but crossing a finish line can be a little bit better. Or maybe you're going to send out 100 resumes this year. That is specific for looking for a new job, right? It's measurable. For those of you already into fitness and running, maybe it is improving your 5K or half marathon or marathon or triathlon time, focusing on the steps that will get you there. So specific and measurable. It needs to be achievable, right? I will never run a 6-minute mile for the rest of my life, and I'm kind of okay with that. At this point, dealing with some injuries and just the benefits of age, heck, I might not run again anytime soon, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I want to get under 100 in golf a couple times this year and maybe start looking at under 90. And there's some exercise and things and flexibility and stretches I want to do to get there. It needs to be achievable, right? To set that goal, we want to set something that we can definitely realistically achieve. And that comes into realistic and relevant. Is it something that is really important to you? When I reflect on my goals, not really my goals, my words for last year, I had to come to a conclusion that some of them just weren't that relevant. They weren't that important. And I'll tell you a little bit about that when I reflect on last year, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and or relevant, and of course, time oriented. When we talk about years, we talk about in the frame of a year, but my goodness, 365 days is a long time to consider a goal. And so I usually recommend breaking the year up into seasons or periods of time or even months. Excuse me, it's interesting not having somebody here to interview. It's a lot harder to grab a drink in between you expecting me just to continue to talk. So had to get a little bit more coffee in there. And if you're watching YouTube, this spectacular handmade stoneware, the Meaning Project podcast mug. Okay, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time oriented. These are how we set SMART goals, right? But as you may have noticed from the title, I threw in another acronym, another bunch of letters in there. Boy, I'm gonna have to go back and research. What does it mean when you break up words into their first letter? I think it's acronym. Anyway, I've been using this one lately. It's terrible. That's what I tell everybody I speak to. I really need to work on it, but it seems to work. So the title of this podcast, episode 86, Existential Dynamics and MEPSRV. Dan, what in the Sam Hill is MEPSRV? It's the letters I came up with to reflect kind of all areas of our health: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, soul, and oh my goodness, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, and vocational. I can't do that slowly. I've been using it so much, I can't break it down that slowly. MEPSRV, MEP, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, because we are spiritual beings in not just in logotherapy. That's who we are, and we need to really, whether you're a religious person or an atheistic person, recognizing, or even an agnostic, that the human spirit, the human consciousness, that which contains all of our resources, is an important aspect of our overall health. Whether you want to join a specific religious movement to express that or not, recognizing that spiritual nature, that we need to nourish it, that part of us that seeks meaning and connection. Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, we are wired for connection, and vocational, we work, right? These are the 6 areas of wellness, of health, that I work with individuals and organizations to address. And so maybe that's something for you to consider as you look at 2023. What areas do you want to focus in, right? So if you're not going to set SMART goals, that's okay. But what in these 6 different realms of wellness do you want to improve on? Mentally, do you want to read more? Do you want to grow in some knowledge? Take some courses, get some certifications, grow your understanding of a particular topic. Emotionally, how do you feel about your ability to control your emotions? I know I've shared with you personally, sometimes I can be a bit of an anger monster. Don't ask my kids about that. They'll let you know for sure, right? There are times that stress and life gets to me, and my anger doesn't always come out that great. What can I do about that, right? Physically, that's the easy one we all go for. As you'll hear in my assessment, my physical goals last year did not work well. When I talked about balance last year, I was out of balance. Way too much work, not enough physical activity. So that's going to change this year. At least that's part of the goal, right? Spiritual. How do you want to grow spiritually? How will you seek meaning? How will you cultivate your humor, your consciousness, your conscience? How will you grow morally, ethically, right? How can you nourish that spirit? And the one that I've talk about a lot in the field of logotherapy is, where will you discover new meaning, right? And then of course the other 2, relational and vocational. How are your primary relationships doing with your partner, your spouse, your good friends, your children? How do you feel those relationships are going, and where might you be able to improve upon them? How do you want to do that? I'll tell you, for those of you that have asked, I have sent you a free link to an amazing relationship course. My wife and I actually completed, now it was November of 2021, some really good, just basic foundational information, relates a lot to the Gottman Institute research, but really healthy and helpful things. If you're interested in that, send me an email. I will gladly send you the connection. It's on my website in a previous blog going way back to November of 2021. Free videos. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and a workbook on Amazon for less than $10. I highly recommend that if you want to work on your relational health. Of course, relationships with kids, friends. I know for me personally, I'm certainly going to work on some friendships this year, going to go visit some people in faraway places just to work on, improving. I don't want to say rebuilding, but improving those relationships. And of course, vocational. We live in a time where vocational health is so questionable. It's funny, as I assess my word balance from last year, life was so out of balance, and it had a lot to do with my vocation. And what I need to do there will be something for exploration in 2023. Yeah, excuse me, a little bit of coffee there. MEPSRV, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, and vocational. What a great assessment tool, in my opinion, to review last year and come up with some ideas for this year, right? So far, we've said, let's not set resolutions, but maybe let's look at some SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and relevant, and time-oriented. Or think of the things you want to address in your MEPSRV. I think I just used that as a noun. That's interesting. MEPSRV, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, and vocational. Where can you improve? Where can you seek new meaning in all of those areas? And if you've been a follower or listener of the podcast for a while, last year, I wish I could remember where I got this idea. I actually think, oh boy, I'm not sure you're going to appreciate me admitting this, but I think somebody passed it on to me from Brene Brown. Yeah, I used a Brene Brown thing in my life, guys. That's okay. It's better than using anything from Dr. Phil. And I know many of you out there appreciate and respect Dr. Brene Brown. I'll be honest, I just really haven't gotten into too much of her information. But I know it's been wonderfully helpful for many people. So I do not disparage it whatsoever, but I will disparage the heck out of Dr. Phil. Don't go watch that stuff. It's terrible for you. Words, picking words that you want to focus on last year. And it was funny, I found in my, okay, prepare for a tangent here. My field notes book from last year. Let's see, this one I carry. You guys, I carry 4 field notebooks on me. Why, Dr. Dan? Why in the world 4 field notes book? One is actually spiritual and relational. It's got this cool little planetary thing going on there, and I take some notes there. This one, love this one. This is my travel ideas, right? Or travel experiences. You can see some pages here, putting together a trip with some friends for the summer here, but also trips I've taken. I don't know about you, but some days you've heard me tell you that when I lead groups of high school students on international travel, like we are moving. And so much of the time I'll look at a photo or maybe a gift I brought back from somebody and think to myself, oh, what the hell is that? Where'd that come from? When did I get that? And so I do try to take just a little bit of page of notes each day of travel, just for my own old decrepit memory. And then these 2 here are personal and work. This one, wow, 2 years from September 1st of 2020 to May 11th, 2022 at the Purpose Summit I attended this year. And a lot of it is personal goals, but mostly vocational goals, personal vocational goals, how I want to help more people in bigger and better ways, as you've often heard me say. And so that transitioned as this one. I keep it on me just for reflection, but it needs to go into a stack over there at some point. But started up this new one on May 18th on the second day of the Purpose Summit. And I went back and shortly thereafter, midway through the year, around my birthday, for those of you that care, assessed what the first half of the year looked like. Now, if you listen for a long time, you might remember my words for 2022 were balance, discipline. Now, it's just going to be those two, but I added two more, speak and write. Balance, discipline, speak, and write. Balance, I recognize before even 22, and maybe coming out of COVID in 21, right? Like my life was just out of balance, needed to improve on that. And according to the end of the year, and maybe even now, I didn't. I don't think it was very balanced. And maybe something I need to figure out is integration. We talk about the new buzz phrase, catchphrase is not work-life balance, but work-life integration. So I'm going to put some ideas to work there. Discipline, as you know, maybe I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and Mr. Jocko Willink talks a lot about discipline. And for me, I think that really just meant waking up earlier to get some things done. And I did in the beginning of the year. That went well. I have to be honest, I have failed miserably lately. And maybe it's just this past week, the recency effect. It is so unhealthy to wake up and go right to your phone. I know that. I preach that. I share that. And I do it. And it just ticks me off. That thing can be so dang addictive. I have been known to go to my phone to check my email. That's always, they say that's one of the worst things, is checking your email, because you give those first critical moments of your day right away to other people. And many times, I don't know about you, but my personal email address on Yahoo, holy cow, there's never anything important in it. It's just companies trying to sell me stuff. And then if I look at my work email, Dr. Dan at DanielAFrans.com, it's me giving the first beginning of my day to all of those those individuals that I help and work with. And as much as I certainly do care about them and want to help, I can't be helpful to them until I take care of myself in the morning, right? So that's something I need to work on, is getting back to that discipline. And of course, the other two words, speak and write. That goes back to what I was saying earlier about relevant, smart goals. I did get some good speaking opportunities in there. A few of them were virtual, a few of them were live. I got a couple more coming up next year, and actually one just next week, I think. But what I had to realize is, as much as I had worked on kind of a business plan of taking the message of logotherapy and existential analysis out into the world in bigger and better ways, I didn't want to do it in a way that I traveled too much and was taken away from my family. I have a daughter in college and a daughter who is wrapping up high school, and a wife who just transitioned to a new job. And as I went through the year, I had to realize that goal might have not been relevant to me, because I didn't want to leave all that often. Now, who knows? Maybe that changes here in this year or the near future. I still want to share the message of logotherapy and existential analysis in bigger and better ways, helping more and more people. And I have some ideas on ways to do that that won't take me away from the basement studios of the Meeting Project podcast. So that was just interesting for me to realize that speaking with travel may not be in the cards as much as I thought it was. And of course, right, I really thought last year I was going to knock out the next great Dr. Dan book. The first great Dr. Dan book. I did write a book about 12 years ago that none of you, I think, would be interested in unless you are a therapist considering private practice. And being that that's 12 years old now, 10, 11 years old, it really needs a redo. But if you want to take a look, it is available on Amazon. One of the thoughts of last year was to write more. And maybe both speak and write is summed up here in the Meeting Project podcast. Because you guys, I love doing this. I hope you understand that when I say thank you, I truly mean it. You give me the opportunity to share these messages in bigger and better ways, and hopefully they help you and you share them with other people. But maybe that's what speak and write meant for me, is just continuing to grow the podcast. If you've been listening, I've had some amazing interviews in the past several months. That's been fun, but just some days sitting here and chatting with you and waxing philosophically about logotherapy and existential analysis and Dr. Frankel and all my peers in logotherapy, and sharing these messages with you in a way that I feel like I hope it helps, right? Certainly is meaningful to me. So that was my mid-year assessment of those goals. And I guess, thank you, I just did a end-of-year assessment with you, recognizing, let's see, it's interesting. What do these notes say from midway last year? I was feeling unfocused and unsatisfied. Feel the need to write. And there's a quote here, see where the spirit takes it. I wonder where that quote came from. I did note, unclear if speaking is now. So that definitely was something I was considering. And really, that's kind of ironic. Even in June, I was saying, got to up the exercise, maybe consider a new bike. Like I wasn't using the old bike enough. And after the week between Christmas and New Year's, my goodness, I certainly need to we'll throw some weights around as soon as I'm done recording this. That's how much I need to exercise. So 2023, there was a quick assessment of 2022. I hope you take some time to do that. It doesn't matter if you do it before the end of the year or at the beginning of the new year, but to reflect back and consider, where was I successful? Where did I fail? What did I want to achieve? What did I achieve? What do I want to do this year? Right? Why is that important? Because your human spirit calls for it. And your MEPSRV, your overall health, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, and vocational, counts on that spiritual health, right? So look at how you can nurse that spirit, how you can grow, how you can discover new meaning. So how am I going to do that in 2023? Well, if you care to know, I'll tell you. It's right here again in the Field Notes book. Let me take a quick tangent on the Field Notes book. I love these things. I highly recommend them. They are made in Chicago, Illinois. They have, as you said, all kinds of different, or as I said earlier, all kinds of different patterns. Here's national parks and different towns and stuff. But even if it's not field notes, just paper, notes, notebooks to keep on you and near you. Maybe even, I love this, I got a little pen in here as well. Actually, yeah, it's not here right now. I have a wallet where I can keep a pen in it just to keep notes. Why? Why write? Why keep notes? It's funny you ask. I was actually working with a coaching client a few weeks ago, and he had said to me, sorry, he had apologized. We were on screen. He said, sorry, I'm taking notes here. Because I actually said, hey, you look really distracted. Everything okay? And he held his phone up. He said, yeah, taking notes. I said, wow, now that's really interesting. I said, do you do that often? He said, well, yeah, meetings at work. And I said, okay. When we take notes on our phone, which has become really common, but when we go to our phone to take notes, how do the other people around us feel? Right? The phone has become such a symbol of distraction and inattentiveness, and I'm not listening, that it can often cause problems in conversation or communication. Don't get me wrong, it's helpful, but, and maybe it's just me being old fashioned, but there's good research that paper and pen or pencil triggers different parts of our brains. It ignites our creativity. And come on, if you're sitting with somebody and you've got a little notebook and you're looking at them and you're taking notes, I think that feels a lot better than you going to your phone. Because what do most people assume when you go to your phone? Oh, somebody else is more important. You're texting somebody, checking your Facebook, blah, 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 whatever, especially across the screen. You see somebody grab their phone across the screen. Oh my goodness, it is so disconnecting. But to grab a notepad, a legal pad, a field notes, say, okay, yeah, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm attentive to you. Man, that really communicates something different. So that little tangent, I highly recommend. Maybe a goal you set is to, if you're going to take notes, to maybe take more notes, to do it with paper and pen. So, all right, here on the screen, bam, move and create. Those are my two words for 2023. Move. That's part of that. There's so many things, but for me, it's a big part of work life integration. Balance is out of the question, right? I love my work. I love the people I get to help, but man, I've been experiencing this a lot the past couple months. I cannot sit in a chair for an hour at a time, 55 minutes, hour after hour after hour. So I've got to figure out a way either to do more standing work That would be really weird in a clinical counseling or coaching office, but on screen, it's really easy just to put the laptop over there and do it. Maybe live in office, take more walking sessions. Maybe I take more breaks in between sessions, but I've got to do more moving. And I would think that might be true for many of us, right? So for me, that's going to manifest itself in as I said, I want to improve my golf game. So I've invested in some golf workouts. Santa Claus brought the family a weightlifting bench. It was very cool. Santa Claus, a weightlifting bench this year. So I will use that, as will most of the people in the house. I've already heard great reports on that. And so move. I have got to find ways to move more on a daily basis. And that's going to be that simple. Last night on the way home, I thought about investing in one of those step counters. I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I'll let you know I might be someday soon. So move and create. And so maybe that's a derivation of speak and write. But as you heard me saying that assessment, mid-year assessment, I'm feeling called to do some stuff. And so I have this great idea, and maybe it's maybe it's way too many ideas, to put a lot of the information and knowledge that you hear about here on the Meaning Project podcast and what I use in my office into a coaching program. So I'm really excited with that. I've invested in a bit of my own coaching to help, right? Because you've heard me say this for way too long. I have this idea and I want to bring it to fruition. So how do you do that? How do I do that? How do I recommend other people do it? At some point, Dr. Dan, you got to quit talking about it and you have to go do it. And one of the best ways I found to make sure I do something is to invest in some accountability, some coaching, and some knowledge, right? Somebody else's knowledge to say, okay, let me share this with you, because obviously you haven't brought it to fruition yet, because maybe you lack some knowledge, but certainly you're lacking accountability and motivation. And so I put some money into a coaching program. I'm working with this great man. He's got an amazing, I haven't figured out yet, Irish accent, maybe Scottish accent. He's fun to chat with and listen to. So doing some initial work in that, and that's going to go full blown in February. So I'm just going to go with 2 words this year: move and create. And I will obviously assess that mid-year, but probably, monthly personally too. So hopefully, I hope you have a wonderful and meaningful 2003. I hope your 2002 was wonderful for you and your family and your loved ones and your work and your relationships and your spiritual, physical, emotional, mental health. I went backwards on that one. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about my year and what next year is going to look like, hopefully. And I hope you found some tools here, right? MEPSRV, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, vocational health. SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and relevant, and time-oriented. Or, of course, you could go, I want to call it the Dr. Dan method now, not Brene Brown. Pick some words that you want to focus on this year and see how you attend to them throughout 2023. As always, thank you. It is my absolute pleasure to bring a little bit of mental health and meaning to your day. If you'd like your own beautifully handcrafted The Meaning Project podcast ceramic coffee mug, hop on the Patreon page. There's a link down there if you want to grab your own Meaning Project podcast t-shirt, sweatshirt, pint glass, etc. There's a merch page. And hey, hop on over to danielafranz.com, DANIELAFRANZ.com. Take a look at what it looks like now, because I have a feeling as I go through this creative process, that's going to be changing as I introduce some new coaching and opportunities to work together. Again, thank you. Congratulations on successfully making it through 2022. Best of luck for a meaningful and happy and healthy 2023. Take care.